Darren Ault. Great conversation with Darren. He was a coach at the youth level and wrote a great book about it. And he talks about how parents were 99% of the parents were great. There was a couple that weren't, and how to deal with that. The difference between coaching boys and girls, vast difference. He wrote a book, Out of Bounds, where he discusses some of the lessons he learned. He didn't get this. There was one incident and he didn't get the support of the legislation there. It's unfortunate, but he's a Navy graduate. Talk about that, some of the lessons learned there. I coached my daughters as well at the youth level, and there was, again, 99% of the parents were great. Students, the girls were always great. One or two parents just made it difficult, kind of a different vision of what their offspring should have as a role in the team, in the organization. But it's just a great conversation with Darren. I'm not sure if I had one similar to this. I don't think I've ever had youth coach on before. So it's very refreshing where he could bring some of his experiences and I could share some of mine as well. But great conversation with Darren. Really, really appreciated it. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Talk to you, and I can't wait to talk to you, Darren Ault. Thanks so much for your time. What lessons did you learn in the Naval Academy that civilians can't truly appreciate?
Oh boy, there's a whole cadre of lessons, especially as when I left California to go to Naval Academy, jumped on a plane in San Francisco and flew cross country sight unseen to go to chase some ambitions as a young man. But
wow,
when you go there, just not really knowing at 17 how old, who you are really and what you're made of. So from the get-go, they kind of strip you down and build you back up. I mean, I was teasing my nephew the other day, who's got one of these crazy haircuts these days that young people are wearing, that the first day I sat in a barber chair, they took that razor, went right down the middle of my hair, which was kind of like your pride, right, as a young man. And so that started it. But definitely lessons around teamwork, which is essential, discipline, being able to define and adhere to a structure that will ultimately lead you to the opportunity for success. I mean, you still have to perform in those moments, but you need that foundation of structure and discipline to really get you there.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza Dash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. And had you lacked that prior?
I wouldn't say I lacked it, because I did play high school athletics, which requires a level of discipline. I worked outside of school, which requires a level of discipline as a young man to get up and actually go, punch a clock and put in some labor. But I would say it wasn't organized. It wasn't fiber to my being. It was part of who I was, but it really wasn't complete yet. It wasn't mature yet.
What do you want the reader? I want to dive into your book, Out of Bounds. What do you want the reader to come away with, Darren?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that there's a bit of a problem in youth sports,
Yes.
to where it's devolved over time from the opportunity for young men and women who are finding themselves, much like I said, about the 17-year-old boy going to the academy. You're finding yourselves trying to define who you are. But along the line in youth sports, you're supposed to have fun and meet new people and meet new challenges and learn a lot more about yourself and how you interact with others and what you're capable of doing personally. And that has devolved into this showcase of pursuit of dreams that are great to pursue, but they're really out there for the few and far between in terms of
Mm.
getting to college on scholarship or eventually getting to the pros. And I think a lot of that has just changed the dynamic of that sport. So that's number one. But outside of that element, which is it's a tough one because it's eroding a lot of what's around it, a lot of the casing of youth sports that's around it. There are a lot of great relationships to be had in youth sports, both as player and coach, and parents and coach, and player to player, right? In terms of what a young person can understand they're capable of bringing to something bigger than themselves. So I tried to share that, both the serious part about it, the toxicity part, but also share a lot of the fun stories that over my 33 years of coaching I cherish to this day.
What should youth sports be about?
Well, if it's township, kind of localized sport, go support your town. Go have fun meeting new people from throughout your town and really being a part of the community that represents that town. If it's for the high school or the schools, it really should be about that school, right? And the
Mm.
support of that school. So if, like I did when I was in high school, play multiple sports, because that's the way you're going to learn different things, different elements of yourself. I ran cross country to get in shape for basketball. That was my original intent. I ended up falling in love with cross country because it was, you want to talk about discipline. That was
Yeah.
you against you,
Mm.
first and foremost. There was a team element to it, but you had to get past your own mental hurdles. But oof, do I want to do this every day? Go run hills after running 8 miles and then running back to the school afterwards, and then all to compete, for a 3.2 mile race. So that's what it should be about, those developing muscle skills, different capacity within ourselves to change our mindset from an open field running kind of event to an internal court or football field team event where you're just a piece of something bigger. And how do I get the most out of that? And then
Mm.
along the way, all the social relationships and the engagement, that the people skills that you need to develop for later on in life.
So what has youth sports become? Given that should be the goal. What does it become in your opinion, Darren?
It's become much more of a me centric exploration for people.
Mm.
You see it definitely in colleges today, where it's not about the school that I'm going to and the pride and history of that school and my opportunity to represent that school. It's where can I go to get the best out of it for me, especially with NIL money. So you got kids that are jumping from school to school to school in pursuit of money, not in pursuit of a quality education and all the social aspects that come with that higher education. It has bled into high school. You have kids that will leave a school in pursuit of something better, not get it, and then go to another school.
Hmm.
And one young lady in the book I wrote about, she was, by the time she was a junior, she had been to her fourth high school,
Wow.
all in pursuit of something, and it's just inexplicable. It's really taken away from, again, that sense of community, the sense of team, the watching the maturation process of a young man or a young woman who came in as a freshman in high school, and the steps that they took to develop all of those elements we talked about by the time they're a senior. People don't have patience for that anymore. It's here, it's now. What can I get, in terms of, for me, can I get a starting role? Can I get college exposure? Things like that, as opposed to what can I do to contribute to this team in this program?
Hmm. But before name and likeness, right? Before NIL came out, and we see high school senior quarterbacks getting $1 million
Yeah.
before they go. I mean, we're seeing this. unbelievable amount of money. For the first time, I believe I heard this week that a PE firm actually bought the athletic program at University of Utah, something like that, where private equity is getting involved with the schools now because there's so much money to be made. But even before this,
Mhm.
Darren, there was still an issue. Before money kind of colored things, there was still an issue with trying to get scholarships, with just trying to be more about me. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it was money spent in a different way.
Mm,
The individualized training, which became really really popular over the years, and listen, there's benefit to it, but it became a business in its own right, and
mm,
more factory like. Let's get 20 kids in here and try to teach them something where that something may not be applicable to all 20 kids, or
mm,
applicable to the game, or applicable to what their coach is teaching them, right? So, but the personalized training became a business, so much so that parents in that hunt to get their kid to that next level would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in trying to get their son or daughter better in
amazing.
a game.
Hmm,
And something that they either the child themselves may not share the same passion for, right? Or may not have ultimately the ability to get to the level that they're looking for. And when that happens, in my opinion, you have parents now looking at all the money they spent on all these trainers to get their kid to this spot. They should be a starter and they're not. Now you have frustration boiling up. You have that sense of lost investment or wasted investment that it's not paying out. And instead of recognizing that it may just be their child's not ready at that moment
hmm,
or doesn't share that passion with them, they blame the coach. They blame
hmm.
something else. And that's been happening for years.
So let's talk more about the system, Darren. I've talked to European basketball coaches, and what I hear, and some in the States, what I hear is that just the sheer difference in approach in, let's just talk about basketball. So in
Mm.
Europe, I a lot of like practice 9 times, play once, right? And when you're shooting, you're always shooting on one foot or you're shooting off balance, and recreate game situations. Whereas in the States, it's 9 games versus one part practice, right? It's more about getting the win, getting into play. So it's a very different philosophy. So we
Yeah.
see a lot of the European players coming over here, and they can tell a lot of the fundamentals are there. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think the game is seen as the opportunity for exposure.
Mm,
And that's why, the advent of AAU and a lot of these large circuit programs where they're having tournaments all over the country. Again, big dollars involved, both from
mm,
the application part of it and the sponsorship part of it. But it's so much about let's get the exposure to get to where we want to go,
mm,
as opposed to let's learn the game and the
mm,
elements of the game and the fiber of teamwork that make you successful in that game, which ultimately will pan out. I mean, yes, the exposure is great, but at the end of the day, college coaches want to see how the kid interacts with their teammates, whether they're in the game or not, how they
mm,
respond to the coaches' instructions throughout the game, how they respond to the atmosphere within that gym. Is it
mm,
too big of a stage for them, or do they let a boo from the crowd, drop their shoulders or whatever like that?
mm,
So I'm a big. You need both, right? You need both, a balance of both. Practice is essential to prepare you for that game element, and then the game itself. There's a lot of lessons through the successes and most importantly the failures as to what we need to do at the next practice to get you
mm,
better, to get our team better. So I'd say it's kind of we need more of a structural balance to that. De-emphasize the games a little bit,
mm.
but and put more of that emphasis back into the quality of practice.
Darren, what's the role of the parents? Let's talk about at the youth level, high school and below. What's the
Mhm.
role of the parents of the athletes?
Um, some people say they should be fans, but fan is short for fanatic, so
Mm,
they do some of that on their own pretty well. Me, I like to think of it in terms of being a supporter. That there's a lot that goes behind the scenes to making sure that your son or daughter's up and ready and capable to get to practice. That they've and I would always challenge my kids, the players, to put their effort into this as well. But make sure your homework's done so that doesn't become a hurdle down the road
mm,
or that day. Make sure your chores are done at home because I don't want mom or dad to have any reason to keep you from practice. Right? Again, going back to that discipline and structure, but to support them, obviously not just in getting there, but I think part of the dynamic that gets tricky is when the kid comes home and they have a frustration around a practice or a game performance, or I'm not starting, or I'm playing JV instead of varsity. That conversation is an amazing opportunity for the parent to talk about the merits of earning your place, of hard work, stick to itedness. Where yes, you may not be where you want to be now, but what are you willing to do to get there?
Hmm.
Right? To encourage dialogue between player and coach. Where too oftentimes, and I'm not been at homes, but I can hear it echoing in the kids' mindsets when they come to practice sometimes. Coach just doesn't like me,
Mm.
or coach likes whoever better, or um, parents may actually go to the point of coach doesn't know what he's doing or what
Hmm.
she's doing,
Hmm.
and that uh, fiber of doubt planted by a parent into the player's head erodes at what could be a great relationship on the court or at practice or in the game between player and coach. So be a supporter, really. I mean, put your love and your interest, and when you're in the stands, most of all, when you're in that public space where your kids out there and they feel the pressure of having to contribute already, just root them on. Don't hammer them from the stands. Don't get after the refs because as a coach we do enough of that ourselves.
Right.
Don't start to talk about other players or kids on your team, and certainly when you get out of the game into the car, the worst thing you can do is start to tell the kid what they didn't do right in that game.
Mm.
Give them
Mm.
time because they're feeling that already.
I coached both of my daughters in youth soccer, right?
Mm,
And so I'm from the Northeast New Jersey. I was in Connecticut, and 99% of the parents, Darren, wonderful,
mm,
supportive, but there's always one or two. And I remember I would have kind of these parent meetings 3, 4 times a year, like every third game. And I remember the first one where parents were there and the girls were there and we were talking. I said, "Do you have any questions?" And this one parent said, it was particularly vocal. He said, I think we're missing out on corner kicks. We're not scoring enough on corner kicks. We need to be more offensive on corner kicks. We're missing opportunities there.
mm.
So I said, this is wonderful. This is absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Girls, this is very exciting. From now on, at all our practices, the last 10 minutes will be focused on corner kicks. Mr. Smith here has volunteered, and he's going to be running the corner kick sessions for us. And so as soon as he just kind of stepped back, and I never heard from
Yeah.
parents again.
Yeah, that's a great tactic. You could find a pretty good assistant coach in that regard too.
Yes,
There
that'd
is
be
that
even
one
better.
chance. Yeah, you step up and volunteer. It's all good.
Yes.
But I had a father who was just getting on me about daughters' playing time. One thing, and I would do the same thing you did, Joey. I would have conversations with the parents and players together
Yes.
as before the season started about here are the expectations that I have for your kids. Here's what you can expect from me, both as a coach to your daughter or son, and as a fellow adult who's been blessed with the opportunity to coach your daughter and son. But inevitably during the year there'd be a conversation around playing time or things which were to me forbidden conversations. Don't
Right.
ask me about playing time. Ask me about what your son or daughter needs to do to get better, right? And let's talk to them about that. So one father came along and he just kind of hammered me about the playing time and she should be starting and all this kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? I don't normally do this. Well, why don't you come to tonight's practice? And I'll let you sit there and watch what I see day in and day out. And then let's have this conversation again.
Hmm.
So practice started. We got through our warm-ups. We're now into the drills and things like that and doing some 5-on-5 stuff. And I see him come in and he sits on the opposite side and he's watching and he's watching. About a half hour later, he got up and left. And I didn't hear from him again.
Wow.
And that's not to disparage the child. The child's
Right.
out there,
Yes.
doing everything they can to contribute to that. But that again goes to that conversation at home. You should be starting. You should be playing more minutes. And so now the kid starts to feel like, yeah, why aren't I? As opposed
Hmm.
to what can I do to get there? And ultimately, I ended up having a wonderful conversation with that player around those circumstances. Coach, I've been playing with you for a couple of years. What is it that I need to change or add to my game that allows me to be better?
Hmm.
And she went far above where she was after that conversation because she
Wow.
saw it. She was able to commit to it, and she flourished.
It is, and when you talk to I'll mention girls because that's what I coach. When you talk to them, yeah, they're so, some have very different motives. Some just want to be part of a team,
Yeah.
right? They just want to be there at the very young age. There were a couple of the girls who would kind of pull their shirt over their head and just stand in the middle of the field, right? I mean, the 6 and 7 year old, very
Yeah.
different. You would feel that the parents were pushing them more to play than they wanted to be. But as they got a little older, and then there were some that wanted to win, and there was some that, again, more about the team. And I could always tell, Darren, by the way, the girls that had the older brothers.
Mm.
Boy, that first practice, I could just tell right away. And I walk up and say, what's your brother's name? She said, how do you know I have a brother? I could just tell. I could just tell by the way you, yeah. And so again, they all have different motivations for being there. And it's important to understand those and try to collectively create one for the team.
Yeah, I coached girls for 22 years at the high school level, and then AAU and stuff scattered throughout that. Boys prior, and it's amazing the difference between young men and young women,
Yes.
in the way that their intake
Mm,
on criticism,
mm,
and it could be as positive as you could frame it,
mm.
from a constructive criticism standpoint. And a young man generally say, "Okay, coach, got it," and he'll go
Move,
out
yeah.
and probably do the same dumb thing over and over and over
Right.
again, and then come
Right.
back and still get the constructive criticism, and then eventually he'll get it. A young lady, you give that positive, constructive criticism to, and you say it in the nicest way, and they feel like you're yelling at them, or they have so much self doubt, in a lot of ways. And that was for me was one of the biggest challenges early. How do I get these young women to believe in them the way I believe in them, the way I see that, what their overall potential is and where they can get to, not just as an individual, but as a team. And that was what coaching to me was all about. That was the fun, was taking somebody who had that self-doubt
Mm.
or was there for just the social aspect, but didn't realize that they got a lot to contribute from the athletic aspect, and have them all just kind of meld together as one fantastic unit. That's really what coaching was about.
Yeah, what's said and what's heard can be very different
Mm.
from girls. Yeah, and I noticed even the boys, like after practice was over, they would still kind of scrimmage and take shots and everything, and still run around with the ball. The girls packed up, walked to the car. Very different approach. Not that one's wrong or one's right. It's just very, very different. And each athlete is motivated differently. You have to try to
Mm.
learn what that is, and it can be
But
challenging, but the athletes are almost never the problem. It's just those few parents that really kind of spoil things, unfortunately, in my case.
yeah, and I would try to answer two parts to that. Right, is that even in a leadership role that I have now in a sales organization, you
Mm,
still have to find what is it that motivates each individual. They're all different, and how do I dress that individual to find those elements to help them drive their success and drive the right behaviors. Right, it's from Lori to Macy, they're going to be entirely different.
mm,
They're driven differently, they're built differently, they're whatever the circumstances are. So as a leader, you got to find and massage and manage those different elements.
hmm.
Right, to the part about the parents that kind of are on the negative side of things, I've said it in my book, I'll say it 1,000 times over and over again, it is a minority
Right.
by far.
By far.
I mean, out of the hundreds, thousands of relationships I have with parents over 33 years, I can count on less than two hands
That's right.
the circumstances that eventually led to me writing this book.
Yeah.
And as I'm writing the book, I'm like, oh, I don't want this to be like, pounding the table about the negative side of sports, because there's so much good that comes out of that engagement, parent, player, coach, parent, coach, right? There's so much good that can come out of that. And for the most part, good did come out of it. Even to this day, 33 years later, people come, hey, coach, how you doing? And it's just
Right.
that instant connection, that instant engagement. As a matter of fact, last Sunday at Mass, I had one of the mothers of two young men that I had the fortune to coach both of her sons on different teams. And ironically, both teams went 24-0.
Wow.
So her sons are tied to those two great seasons forever, right?
Wow.
One of them now has two children, and he's actually coaching them in basketball. And she was relaying the stories to me about him coming back and say, "These kids don't listen," and all the kind of how do coaches do it, that kind of thing. So I said to her, give Chris my number, we'll talk.
What if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you. Yeah, that really needs to be said. A really good point, Darren, because when I'm back up north and I see some of the parents or even some of the students, they still call me coach. And it's been 20, 15 years, and sending gifts and going, just incredibly supportive. You help shape my daughter, and it's so complimentary. And yeah, that really needs to be said. I guess that's similar in today's world in social media, where there's more, more positive. There's those couple ones you can't help sometimes to kind of focus on a bit. You use the term earn versus deserve.
Yeah.
The difference.
There's a huge difference, right? Deserve, and unfortunately, the mindset of a lot of youth today is centered around deserve. That for whatever reason, this is owed to me. There's an entitlement element, and you haven't gone out and played a stitch of basketball or baseball for whatever the thing is, or you haven't even in sales, you haven't gone out and engaged your first customer and built that relationship of trust. To the point where they want to buy something from you. So what is it that you deserve? It's all about the time put in and the quality of effort, consistency of effort, day in and day out, that helps you earn whatever it is you're trying to get. In the case of sports, it's playing time. It's earning a spot on the team. It's being able to get in the game and contribute. And that contribution can come in so many different ways. It's not just about scoring, right? You go out and you take the charge that stopped that team from scoring, and we go down and score on the other end. That's huge. And that may be the only thing you do in that game, but you earn the praise around putting yourself in that spot to sacrifice yourself to stop a team from having success, right? So a lot of times that deserve mentality gets in the way of young talent, that if they would just start to commit, to be disciplined, to motivate themselves, or build on the motivation of the team to be better, to always reach beyond the expectation to excellence, to just continue that drive, they stop short because, well, wait a minute, that's not what I'm supposed to get. I'm supposed to be, because of all this time and effort I put in training outside of the program, I'm supposed to be in the starting five. I deserve that. Yet you haven't even played once with these teammates. You haven't seen the caliber of playmakers and the elements and the skills that these people have. You come in as a freshman and think you should be in a starting role as on a varsity team. Yet you haven't even seen what the varsity players have done to get to this point. So that's what I was, talking about. But it does transcend sport into business a lot.
Yeah, the whole entitled thing can be, it's hard to, when there's lack of humility, it's hard to kind of generate that, isn't there? It's a hard thing to approach there, the whole entitled issue in sports and wherever it may be. And, yeah, that's a real tough one there. And unfortunately, I think we see it more now than ever. Maybe not, but how do you address that? That's a tough one, because you talk about being a leader in sales and being a coach. When somebody feels entitled, you have to really reframe that, like you said, and it's easier said than done, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, I had to challenge probably my second to last year coaching. A young lady was caught up in, and this was prior to Caitlin Clark, probably more in the Steph Curry um, wave, but she was in the gym, she was shooting, and she could hit with some consistency, but the problem was a lot of the times the team wasn't ready for that. Right, like the
Ah,
people were not in position. It wasn't the best shot. It might have been off balance. It might have been contested. So it wasn't the best shot we could get. Might not be the best thing to do in that moment of the game.
mm,
Game situation, clock situation where
right.
we don't need the shot, but you take it and we don't get the rebound. The other team's got another opportunity to go, chip away at our lead, kind of thing. And early on in her maturation as a player, her sophomore junior year, it was chuck, chuck, chuck. And I would talk to her about it, and
Wow.
well, coach doesn't want me to shoot. That's not what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying is, I want you to think more about the circumstance, the situation. And if you're coming off a screen, or it's us moving the defense around and the ball comes to you and you're wide open and you're shot ready, take it. Take it all day long, right? But when we're dribbling in transition and you've just cleared the court and four other people on our team are behind you, so we have no opportunity to get an offensive rebound,
Mm,
and you chuck, now that goes into transition the other direction. So it may not be the best situation. So over a period of time, it was resistance at first,
hmm,
and it kind of impacted the emotion and the way she went into the game. Eventually, later in her junior year and early in her senior year, I would just challenge her. I said, there's so much more to your game, and you can take this to the next level. But when you're not the one shooting the ball, what are you doing?
hmm.
And she would say, "Oh, I'm going rebound, coach." And then I'd show her on video where she's standing in the same spot waiting for the game. I said, "I'm not showing this to bring you down. I'm just showing you that there is an opportunity for you to go get a rebound." And then on the defensive side, how are you engaging defensively? Right. And so we started to talk through those things. And I'm telling you, Joey, she started to put in a significant effort to where she was pulling down about 8 to 10 rebounds a game,
Wow.
to where she was more active on defense. Not that she was the greatest defender, but she was more active on defense, which helped us have that unit defense approach as
Hmm.
opposed to four people playing and one person not, you know? So it does take time, but if you don't allow for that relationship, for that engagement, for that leader follower conversation to happen, or if you get in the way as a parent, then that never happens. It never evolves.
And as a result of this, that there's a high burnout rate for coaches, Darren. I mean, is it ultimately going to be just paid coaches that are going to be doing it, and are we going to have quality coaching still there?
I think you'll always have quality coaching. I mean, there are people, and I was passionate about it. That my first 12 years of coaching, I wasn't even paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even a little stipend. I did it for a small Catholic school coaching boys 7th and 8th grade, and had a ball doing it.
Hmm.
And actually, prior to that, I did it as a side job in the Navy. I was at the Naval Academy prep school teaching, and I was the assistant coach for the men's program. Again, you don't get paid for that.
Right.
Eventually, when I got into the high school ranks, there was a little stipend, and I wasn't doing it for the money, but
Right.
I'll take it, you know.
Yeah.
But there are people in all walks of coaching and all walks of leadership through into business who do it because the passion to lead, the passion to help form the talent of a group of people to get from level one up to here,
Hmm.
to reach goals, to reach championships, to reach sales goals, whatever it happens to be. There
Hmm.
are people with that passion, with that want to lead. So I think you'll always have that, whether or not there's longevity to it. Even in our politics, you see it in the politics. People want to go represent the people, and then all of a sudden they realize it's a little bit tougher than I thought it was, or this thing is a muddy puddle, and they get out. So there will be that burnout as well. It's going to be hard to get people to coach at the high school level if things like what happened in my book continue to transpire without check.
Excuse me. Yeah, certainly the case. And we want to encourage, good coaching and development, in all sports. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about major sports here, basketball and soccer, but there's plenty of other up and coming sports that, that need great coaching as well. You have a podcast with your son, Outside the Coach's Box.
Yeah.
What do you want the listener to gain from there? It's pretty cool.
It was fun. My son had this idea, several years ago. He's like, "Dad, we got to do this podcast." I'm like, "Who wants to listen to us?" Kind of thing.
Mm,
And I don't know what my mindset was more around, like, who are we to have a podcast? But there's a bazillion people doing podcasts, right? And
yes.
and he looked at it from a total different perspective. So he taught me. He brought me into that. We talk sports all the time. Let's just take what we do on the couch watching football into this podcast and share it. And we'll do something a little bit different. We don't want to be ESPN or any of the, the big sports networks. So let's just bring a different viewpoint because we were both coaches. He was on my coaching staff, my last coaching staff as an assistant.
Hmm.
And so let's just take that different perspective into different things. So a couple of years of him being consistent, persistent. We ended up getting a couple of microphones, sit down in the office in my basement, and we would talk sports. And we're almost 200 episodes into it. So,
Amazing.
and then he ultimately was able to go out and get some really nice interviews. We had Tim Capstraw, the voice of the New Jersey Nets or the Brooklyn
Hmm.
Nets at this point. We had Jim Quirk, who's an NFL official. He's been on our show twice now after the Super Bowl, and we just have
Wow.
a great conversation about rules of football and even joke around with each other around the calls that you made. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago against the Detroit Lions, the Dallas Cowboys, there was an offensive pass interference on Jake Ferguson. I'm a Cowboy fan. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and then sure enough, it was Jim that called it. I was like, oh, shoot. We had Brian Newberry, the coach of Navy football on, which
Huh.
was a great interview. Just really, really fun stuff. Really good stuff.
It is great how podcasting can bring people together like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I don't know that we're going to continue much longer. I mean, both of our work schedules have gotten a little crazy, and my son has fallen in love, so that tends to
Oh,
change the dynamic of things.
yeah,
you
it
know,
certainly does.
yeah.
Darren, has there been something like about 10, maybe 15 years ago that you believed in firmly, solidly, that you don't believe now?
Uh, I nothing comes to mind that I don't believe now. Because I tend to be an optimist. My old
Hmm.
boss used to say, "Oh yeah, you're the glass half full guy." So generally, if there was something that I believed in and it didn't seem to be heading that way, then I would go back and dissect it a little bit, whether it was the foundation of my belief or the circumstances around it, and how do I need to tweak it. So
Hmm.
what I've learned is that, and maybe I got this from my mother because she was this way, but a perpetual student was just always trying to figure things out and get to a
Hmm.
different level for herself, for her profession, for whatever it was, whether it's spiritually, personally, professionally. So I've kind of picked up some of that in terms of, let me just figure out why this isn't working or why it needs a little bit of a tweaking, and then try to tweak it and try to get it better and try to get to that position of propel myself into a position of more comfort, more confidence around what it is I'm saying, what it is I'm doing. Constantly reading things for work. Just got done reading Trust Matters now more than ever,
Hmm.
and it's about the 8 pillars of trust, and it's a really, really good book. So now I've dissected that pillar by pillar, and I'm sharing it out with my team. Not
Hmm.
giving them the whole book to read, but just saying, hey, this is pillar one. This is how it can apply to you and your day to day work. So I wouldn't say there's anything that has changed, but or to where I've stopped practicing or stopped believing that. It's more about how do I make that faith or effort more mature? How do I
Hmm.
change it?
Is there a question, Darren, you wish more people would ask you?
Would ask me?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Not off the top of my head. I mean, I just think the ask part of it is really interesting, Joey, because that starts the art of conversation, right? And I don't think enough questions are asked. Not one
Hmm.
specific question, not something beyond how are you today?
Hmm.
You know, reframe that maybe. What made this day positive for you, or what was your challenge today? And then that ask should create a moment of listening. And those two things I think are missing in a lot of interactions today: the ask and the listen part of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I started my tech firm in the '90s, Darren, and I was working way too hard, and 14, 16-hour days. You're no stranger to that. And
Mm.
putting my exercise and health in the back seat. And next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I had
Mm.
gained all this terrible amount of weight. And she says, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So I was,
Mm.
scared the life out of me. My daughter was just born. And spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds, kept it off. These are lifelong changes you have to make. And so when I tell people this story, they always say, what'd you do? What's your secret? How'd you lose all the weight? And I say, there's no secret, people. Discipline. You
Mm.
alluded to it earlier. You know, willpower, focus, motivation, all part of discipline, I feel. How does discipline play a role in your life, Darren? Oh,
Oh, every day. And as I was getting ready for your show, I got the fortune of hearing your story a couple of times, and it is very motivating, by the way. So congratulations for having done that and having the discipline to stick to it.
mm,
And it also served a little bit of inspiration because since I've been in leadership, I've noticed I've put on a couple pounds. So,
mm,
I need to get myself back into that mode. But every day, discipline plays a part. Whether it's, I mentioned reading before. That's a discipline because it's so easy today to get on your phone or to sit down and watch TV, especially with streaming services. There may not be anything on regular TV, but I got everything else at my fingertips, and it's easy to get into that habit as opposed to devoting and disciplining yourself to read and read with purpose. Like I talked about the Trust Matters book. Uh, David Goggins has a great book, You Can't Hurt Me. Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership. These are all great books that, in order to get the most out of them, you have to be disciplined to reading them in a common practice, so that you're in the flow of what they're saying and doing. Um, Getting up, I live in New Jersey. I sometimes will commute into New York City to my showroom and to be with my sales team there, or I will spend the time on the road to spend with my sales team in New Jersey and Long Island. So the discipline of structuring that time and
mm,
not just going to hang out or not just going to hear how much their customers love them, which fortunately is often what I hear, but the discipline to sit and carve out some time around, hey, what is it that we're missing in terms of how we're approaching our territory and how we're engaging our customers, and what do we need to tweak to get a little bit better?
mm.
That's a discipline. Exercise to the point of keeping weight off, right? And that's a discipline right now I'm lacking, to be quite honest. Where I will get up early. Why am I not using that time to do something more constructive? And it's because at this particular moment I lack that discipline. So I have to get better at that.
Yeah, we all do. I certainly am not the king of discipline. Far from it. Yeah. But we choose what to have more focus on and what we don't, given
Mm.
particular priorities at the moment.
Yeah, Jocko talks a lot about, and I don't know if it was his or if he borrowed it, but choose your hard
Yeah.
comes out a lot on his conversations, and he simplifies it from, I could choose to have that donut and it would taste great at that moment,
Hmm.
but what are the repercussions of having that donut?
Hmm.
Or I could choose to go work out, and what is the benefits of that as opposed to having that donut? And somewhere, I mean, let's be fair, in life there's got to be a balance. You should be able to eat a donut without
Sure.
thinking you're the worst person in the world. But if you don't have that structure and discipline to do the hard part of the starting an exercise routine, then you're going to be dealing with the hard part of bad health choices at some point, right? So I love that concept. Choose your hard.
Hmm.
And then the head coach, I think it was Duke women's basketball, and I apologize, I forget her name, but her component to that, which I love, was handle hard better.
Hmm.
Because everybody deals with something in their lives, and this is great for kids that are in youth sports. You're gonna come up against a wall somewhere, whether it's you're the sixth person as opposed to the starting five, or whether it's you're the sixth runner in cross country when only five count for the score.
Hmm.
There's going to be a hard there. So how do you handle that?
Hmm.
What do you do to manage that, to overcome the challenge of that difficulty?
Yeah. Well said, Darren. Has there been anything in the last month that you changed your mind on?
Um, yeah, I guess so. Actually, within this last month, Christmas has always been a little bit of a challenging time for me because I certainly believe and appreciate the story of Christmas and the faith based part of it, and I cherish that. But it has become so
Oh
commercialized
yeah.
over the years, and it used to start like right before Thanksgiving. Now it starts right after Halloween, and all the commercial, and all the monetary aspect to it, and that used to really grind my axe. I mean, I'm just like, I hate this, and made it sound like I hate Christmas. That's not true.
Mm.
I just hate the commercial part of it because we're losing sight of what it's all about. So this year I've decided not to be so much of the Grinch. I'm wearing blue instead of green today, or not sound that way. It still does bother, the commercial side bothers me, but
Yeah.
the fun that my wife will have in going out shopping and giving to others, that's really what she's doing it for.
Mm.
And while it hits the bank account, I have to look at it differently.
Mm.
The rush and the grind around Christmas instead of the pause and appreciation for what the season's all about. That doesn't stop me from having that appreciation, and that's what I need to focus on.
Mm. Yeah, I was just at an event. Flew in last night, and I was there for 2 days, and it was at a big resort, hotel, casino type environment. And Darren, the same 12, 10 Christmas songs just on repeat, just
Yeah.
on repeat. And it's like, oh man, I just hard to kind of, I know, people are going to profit from stuff. That's for sure. No real way to stop that. And also kind of keep the holiday cheer can be a challenge, certainly. What motivates you?
Family, certainly. I'm fortunate, blessed to have a wife of 35 years and three kids that are all in their low 30s, but doing well. As a matter of fact, we're going to Pittsburgh tomorrow because my
Nice.
youngest daughter's graduating with her doctorate for physical therapy on Sunday.
Wow.
So everybody's doing great things. I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time here soon. My oldest daughter is having a baby in March. So all that's motivating. And that's certainly, as the provider for my family, it's why I get up every day. It's why I go do what I do. The people that I have had the fortune of interacting with, in those, I don't coach anymore for the circumstances that are in that book, but all the interactions that I did have, those daily engagements with people, meaningful engagements, are motivating to me. Now I've taken it off the court into the office or out into the territory that I am with my team. They certainly motivate me because they do great things day in and day out. So it's really the people and the pleasure of knowing them and watching them grow, and helping, together overcoming challenges. That my team and I talked the other day about limiting beliefs, how we often tell ourselves that we can't do something or make, in our head, we put doubt in front of us as a hurdle, and how to convert those more to liberating truths. How do I take that doubt away and go challenge myself? So that's fun. It's fun to watch people kind of say, oh yeah, I can see that, and then go and put that in play.
Yeah, so I hear I hear legacy from you. I hear impact, teamwork. So given those motivators, Darren, how do you measure success?
Well, and I tell my team this all the time, right? We're in a sales organization. You're ultimately going to be measured by numbers. There's no other way to cut it. They're going to the company's going to look at it and say, okay, you hit this number. That's great. And it is. Or you didn't quite get there. How do we get there? And it's always about the number. And that can become kind of an inhibitor to performance, I think. So what I tell my team is don't focus on the results, focus more on the behaviors that drive the results. So let's talk about what you're doing and what your approach is to market and how you're developing those relationships out there that may not bear fruit today, but through a consistent engagement will ultimately provide what we need, which is that number, right? So that's more about the kind of my approach.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it.
Coach.
Well, I love what you're doing. I love that you took the time and wrote the book, and there's a very tough topic in there that you talked about, and I'm sorry you had to go through that when you don't have the support of the of the politics, like say, or the boards. It's a horrible thing, and I appreciate it. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, Darren, how can they do so?
So I have Instagram, which is at Coach Alt 88. I have X at the same handle at Coach Alt 88, and I am on LinkedIn. Those are the three major social aspects I have. That's probably the best way to reach out at this point.
And of course, you can get Out of Bounds on Amazon, correct?
Pretty much anywhere you can buy a book. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's a few different channels out there, but that Amazon seems to be the most convenient for most people. But yeah, I mean, and listen, it is a great Christmas gift. This is the time, right? It's a great gift for anybody who's been involved with youth sports in any capacity, both as a cautionary tale in some respects, as a mirror maybe to be held to ourselves and say, hey, how are we behaving? And how does our behavior affect others? As just a fun, pure story for the most part around the engagement and the value of that engagement with young athletes and what can come from it. And then, of course, there's the hammer at the end. But, at the end of the day, if I'm a firm believer, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. So keep
Well
growing.
Darren, thanks so much for your time. Next time I'm up in the Jersey area, maybe we'll get a cup of tea.
I would love it. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate the platform, buddy.
You be well.
All right, you too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.